Hi, Lara here. We're going to look at some postures that are fantastic for stretching the psoas muscle and creating more awareness in that area of the body. The psoas is a muscle that goes from the pelvis to the rib cage, and it's really essential for all forms of locomotion. We're going to start with a couple of postures on the back and then move on from there to a few standing lunges. So you'll need a couple of blocks handy, unless it's very easy for you to step forward and back into a lunge. Alrighty. So to start, we'll come onto the back. Make sure you've got lots of space behind you. Have the hands behind your thighs. Push into the feet. Make a C with the spine and lower down as slowly as you can, trying to keep the feet glued to the floor the whole time. Walk the feet towards you slowly. Separate the feet by a hip's distance. Take the right ankle to the left knee. Flex the right foot and lengthen the right knee and thigh away from you. Think about front of the thigh to the back of the thigh. Lengthening the pubic bone away from you. Hip bones equal distance from floor, equal distance from armpits. Lengthening the right inner groin to the right inner knee. Lengthening the inner knee to the inner ankle to big toe mound. Same connection on the outer line. So the outer heel draws to the outer knee to the outer hip. Maybe you can think about pulling the femur bones into the hip sockets. Maybe you can think of the outer trochanter's connecting. Maybe even the right sit bone can draw towards the left. If you still needed more, you could walk the left foot closer, lifting the heel. You could lift your foot. You could bind behind the left thigh. Pushing the thigh away from you into the hands, pulling the upper arm bones into the sockets. You also have the option of placing the left foot on, say, a wall or on a block, bringing the floor a little higher. Push the legs away from you, equally draw those upper arm bones into their sockets. Think inner upper arm to the ceiling, outer upper arm to the floor. If you're finding all of that, you can start to pull it in, but keep the energy of taking the legs away. Let's take 10 more breaths. And releasing left foot to the ground, keeping the angle of the legs as it is, extending wrists in line with shoulders, palms face up. Push into the outer edge of that left foot and press the right knee away from you as you slowly bring the left thigh and right foot toward your left side. And you might hover at some point, perhaps there, perhaps a little further, and you can always support the hip with a block or a bolster underneath the hip here. Perhaps range of motion will allow the foot to be placed on the floor. This is also appropriate. You can lift the outer left heel slightly if you like. Just try not to lift the heel higher than big toe mound. If you need more, you can bend your left elbow, push into the left elbow, lift the left shoulder, left ribs, slide them to the left, lift the head and follow. Perhaps doing that 2, maybe 3 times, and then extending the arms once again. Thinking about rolling the armpits towards the ceiling, pressing into the elbows to lengthen the wrists away from you. And I like an active finger, so spreading the fingers evenly with a slight bend in the knuckles. Lower abdomen draws toward lower back. It's as though you're taking the left ribs to the right. Again, this one is quite good for stretching the psoas muscle. It's a really great place to start for a gentle stretch. The more you think about pulling those femur bones into the hip sockets, the more you push into the feet, the more you think of the outer trochanters squeezing, connecting, the more you'll find here. You can always lift the toes of the right foot if you fancy. That can be quite nice. And then fire up the legs, fire up the abdomen, bring those legs back to center. Straighten out the spine. Draw the right knee towards you, hands behind right thigh, push the thigh away from you, pull the upper arm bones into the sockets, hip bones equal distance from armpits, maybe the left leg straightens, maybe the right leg straightens, maybe you stick with the left knee that's bent. Focus on the right leg first, that's the priority. Pointing and flexing either both ankles or just the right. And circles. Change direction. Flex, curl, point, and flip. Flex, curl, point, and flip. One more. Good. And then flexing. Release your hands, lower that leg all the way down, and then bending both knees. Feet at hips distance apart. Draw the left knee towards you, pivot at the hip. Take the left ankle to the right knee. Flex the foot, lengthen the inner groin to the inner knee. Hip bones equal distance from floor, equal distance from armpits. Pubic bone lengthening. We're trying to pull the femur bones into the pelvis as though someone had their fingertips on your kneecaps and you were trying to pull your kneecaps away from their fingers just a little. Maybe the outer trochanterus can connect. Maybe the left sit bone can draw towards the right a bit. Maybe the right foot walks closer, maybe the heel lifts, the foot might lift, perhaps the hands are behind the thigh. We go for left thumb and forefinger dominant if we changed, or if we interlaced on the other side. Upper arm bones are drawing into sockets, we're broadening the chest, we're thinking thighs away from us. We don't let all the weight sink to the left, we keep it even. We don't let one hip come closer to the armpit than the other, we keep it even. Concentrate on the movement of the breathing, maybe pulling it in if that's available and appropriate for your body. Now releasing, right foot back to the ground, wrists in line with the shoulders, keep that left knee away from you, push into the outer edge of that right foot, slowly bring the right leg and the left foot towards your right side. Either the legs hover or they touch the ground. If they touch the ground, you can lift the outer right heel a bit, you can lift the toes of the left foot if you choose. Think lower abdomen toward lower back, lengthening that left inner groin firmly as you pull the femur into the hip socket. If you need more, bend the left elbow, slide the left shoulder, left ribs to the right, and then you can extend the arm. If you're closer to a wall or some such thing, you can do a 90-degree angle as well with the elbow, the wrist stacking. Also a great option, especially if space is an issue. And you never want to allow lack of sufficient space to stop you from practicing at home. Just because you don't have a lot of room doesn't mean you can't still do a practice. Even if you have just enough room to lie on, to spread out a mat and barely any space beyond that, you can still work with it. Just modify as needed, right? There's always a way to practice. Better to do a little bit frequently than to do a lot once a week. When you're ready to come back out, draw the abdomen in, firm up the legs, and bring yourself back to center slowly. From there, straightening the spine, spine in line with hips, draw the left knee towards you, hands behind thigh, left thumb and forefinger dominant, push the thigh into the hands, slowly straighten the leg. Upper arm bones are not lifting, they're sinking into sockets. If it's appropriate for you, pull those femurs into the pelvis, straighten the right leg. Hip bones are still equal distance from shoulders, ideally. Pointing and flexing, both ankles or just the left. And circles. Change direction. And flex, curl, point, and flip. Flex, curl, point, and flip, and then flex. Release your hands. Imagine you've got a block between your thighs. Push into the palms and lower. Once you've completely lowered, bend the knees. Roll to one side. Usually we roll to the right. Push yourself up. Next, we're going to come to sit on the shins and do a stretch for the shoulders. We'll take the right arm outside the ear, take the palm to face back, bend the elbow. Take the left arm to follow, clasp the opposite elbow. If this is enough, pull the upper arm bones into the sockets and hang out here. If you need more, Then you're going to take your right arm to the right, reach with the fingers, internally rotate, and sweep the arm behind you, either pushing the hands into the body where you arrive or clasping and gripping. In this case, you're pulling the hands apart, you're pulling the upper arm bones into the sockets, you're drawing abdomen and ribs back, putting a little more weight on the heels. Think ribs and belly back, no tension in the neck. Now this one can creep up on you. At first it might be quite comfortable, but the longer you hold, the more challenging it will become. So do be patient with yourself, and should you need a rest, take a rest. However, I recommend staying a few breaths longer than you want to. Slight discomfort is very useful in a yoga practice. We just don't want to be going into pain. Nothing sharp, nothing pulling, nothing tugging. If that's the case, less is necessary. Yoga is meant to be a very incremental practice. We do a little bit more over time. We're not going to be jumping from, A to B really quickly. Just like you don't run a marathon if you haven't practiced running a bit first, right? And then releasing. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Now left arm coming outside the ear, palm facing back, bend your elbow. Try to lengthen that elbow up towards the ceiling. This is the not your trapezius. Your trapezius is relaxing a bit as well, but the tricep here is lengthening. Right arm follows, reach, clasp, pull the elbows apart, pull upper arm bones into sockets. If you did more on the other side, extend the right arm, internally rotate, reach, clasp if you can. Now this side, it is possible that it will be more difficult to clasp than the other. Particularly if you are right-handed, this is likely to be the case. So be patient with yourself if it is difficult. I personally find that having a brief shoulder opening prior to working on lunges is really, really helpful. It makes it much easier to control the upper body, much easier to control the abdomen, and therefore take pressure out of the lower back and concentrate on that psoas muscle. Remember, you have the option of sitting on a block at any time. You can always have a block between your heels, or even two. And that's why we start the practice with a couple of blocks handy, so it's very easy to add one at any time. Okay, now releasing and resting. Come forward now onto the hands and knees. You can either have the hands, shoulders just apart with the fingers pointing straight forward, or you can point the fingers out a little bit, which is easier on the wrist and shoulder. You can also spread the fingers if you'd fancy, okay? Knees and ankles to a hip's distance apart. Take the right toes away from you, open up the toes. You want your toes farther away from you than the heel here. Yep. And then toes closer to you than heel. And then other side, take the left toes away from you, further than the heel. And then heel farther away than toes. Perfect. And you can choose to do that 2 or 3 more times, or you can take a dog, and I'll show you 2 angles. So, toes tucked, hips come towards the heels, external rotation of the shoulders, pull the elbows apart. Lift the knees, lengthen the spine. Lift, let the heels lift, even if they can drop, and lengthen here. And then I'll show you what it looks like from the other side. Toes tucked under, lengthening the spine, ears between shoulders, and then lift. Try to keep the external rotation, focus on the base of the thumb and the index finger, it likes to lift, and then focus on long line, long spine. If lengthening the back of the knee feels appropriate, then go for it. Otherwise, keep them bent. You'll still get a lot of benefit either way. And thinking about lifting the sit bones, lifting the hip flexors here, and a bend in the knee makes it easier, will allow you to get an opening at the base of the psoas attachment. If you find the abdomen and the hip flexors firmly enough. All right, and then lower those knees. Let's take our blocks to the front of the mat. Start on the highest height. Wrap the fingers around or squeeze the fingers together. Squeezing the fingers together is much more intense on the wrist. And you want to have your hands slightly wider than shoulders. Toes and knees tucked under. Step the right foot forward between your blocks. Walk the left knee back as far as you can without losing the straightness of the front shin. Point your left foot, lift your chest, lift your abdomen. Remember, you can always return to this for less on the wrist. If you need more, lift the abdomen, take your hands to your right thigh. And if you need something prior to that, fingertips is great. Get light before you go all the way up. Think shoulder heads back. And if you've got more space, hands on hips. Try to squeeze those elbows together. Think about drawing the right hip back, the left hip forward, lengthening the spine. And you can always lift the toes of the right foot for a little more difficulty. Keeping them down is also fantastic and much more traditional, I might add. Try to lift the abdomen away from your thigh, but no tension. Five more breaths. And it's okay to let your knee go a little bit to the right as long as there's no sensation in the knee. Direct forward is fine too, but slightly out is okay. Good, and then hands coming back to your thigh, back to your blocks. Tuck your back toes under, bring the hips a bit back, step the right foot back. And remember, you can always choose to do together or apart. Together is much more intense on the back and the knees and the hips. So if you want more, stick with legs together. If you want less, feet and knees apart before you step forward and back. I'll continue demonstrating feet together. Left foot comes forward now between the blocks. Chest lifting, belly lifting, using your fingers or squeezing them. Both are really nice options. Point the toes of the right foot. Think left hip bone back, right hip bone forward. You're pulling the left femur bone back into the pelvis and the right femur bone forward into the pelvis. You're trying to lift the abdomen away from the front leg. The front of the shoulder is working back. The external rotation of the upper arm is present. If this is quite comfortable, you need more. You can play with bringing your hands up to your thigh or perhaps going fingertips. Concentrate on those hip bones being as close to equal distance from the front of the mat as you can manage. And if you needed more still, then you could start to work the shoulders back or perhaps take your hands to the hips, to just outside the sacrum basically. You don't want to be right on the buttocks or right on the lower back, but right in the middle. You can always lift the toes of the left foot if you like. The left knee can go slightly to the left or point directly forward, but it's very, very subtle if it goes out. Pushing into the top of that right foot firmly. You're thinking about sinking the hips and lifting the abdomen. Maybe you can squeeze the elbows towards one another. Concentrating on the breathing. Five more breaths. When you're ready to come out, hands come to the thigh, hands come to the blocks, tuck the back toes under, bring the hips back, step the left foot back. Now have the knees either together or a bit apart, big toes touch. Bring your hips towards your heels. For more, you can stay on the high height of the block and let the ears come between the biceps. For less, you can go progressively lower with the block. Too intense. Stack a block, just fingertips touching the block, elbows quite wide, at a medium height or low height. Low height's more intense. Those are all really nice options. Do what suits you. Regardless of which one you go for, don't internally rotate, externally rotate, upper arm bones into sockets, push into the palms. Think about sliding the fingertips away from you as you equally insert the upper arm bones. I imagine I'm dragging my hip creases away from the armpits and vice versa. Good, now coming back forward, blocks back to the high height. Good, placing those blocks in a comfortable position, having the knees and ankles either together or apart, whatever's appropriate for you, and stepping the right foot forward. Balance is also much easier if the feet are apart. Keep that in mind. So right foot is stepped forward, back foot is pointed, chest is lifting, belly is lifting. We've got a straight shin here. If it's not straight, then we would walk our left foot farther back. We also don't want our knee behind our ankle, because this reduces the opening in the hip. So we want to keep perfectly straight shin. And we can stay on the height as we are. We can lift the chest, lift the abdomen. If we want more still, then this time, fingertips first, then hands on thigh. Next option would be right arm on top of left, cross up some eagle arms. And you can do a few stages here. So you can cross and walk the fingers back, stacking the elbows. You can squeeze the forearms, keeping a straight wrist, or you can wrap up those palms completely. If you still wanted more, you would start to elevate the elbow and look up. Knee can go slightly to the right, but not a lot. And then slowly, looking straight forward, releasing the hands back to the hip, back to the thigh, back to the block. Bring the hips back. Make sure the back toes are tucked. Step that right foot back, step the left foot forward. Pointing the right foot, chest lifting, belly lifting. Think left hip back, right hip forward. Concentrating on one spot. You can leave your hands exactly where you are. Think about sinking into the hips as you lift the abdomen away from that left thigh. This is a wonderful place to remain. You certainly don't need to go farther. If you needed more, you can come to fingertips. You can concentrate hands on thigh, or you can extend the arms. Think left arm on top, walking the fingers back to give yourself a hug, or squeezing the forearms, or wrapping up the palms. Thinking about elevating the elbow as you keep straight wrists and fingers and look a bit up if you like. But keep in mind, lifting the chin will intensify how difficult the balance is, but it certainly will make the psoas work a bit more. And you'll gain more awareness, more flexibility there in time. Think external rotation of shoulders as you squeeze those arms. Good, and then slowly bring the gaze forward, release the hands, return to the thigh, return to the blocks, tuck the back toes, bring the hips back, bring the left foot back. Now from here, place the blocks beside you. Place the hands, spreading the fingers. Take the knees and ankles a hip's distance, bring the hips towards the heels, lift the knees and take a dog. Child's pose, as I demonstrated previous, is fantastic as another option. Knees can be bent, legs can be straight, both are really nice. If it's feeling quite comfortable and you'd like to stretch that psoas a little more, walk your feet a little bit closer together, bend your knees a little, and try to lift your right leg, keeping the hips level. If you want more, start to bend your knee, point your foot, and lift the thigh. Try to keep the knee pointing straight back. Good. And you want to let your head hang here. Try not to look forward. Don't do what I just did as I was talking to you. And then straighten your leg and lower. Either rest in between or bend your knee and start to bring your heel towards your seat. And you can either enter with a straight leg and then bend, that would be a bit more traditional, or you can enter with a bent knee. Lift the abdomen, take the thigh back, pointing the foot is more intense. Think knee pointing back and up. Abdomen lifting, lengthening the spine. Try not to let one shoulder go lower than the other. Good, and then straighten your leg and lower. Good. And then lower the knees. Separate the knees, feet pointed, big toes touching. Stack the fists under the head, take 5 breaths. Good. And then hands come under shoulders, coming up. All right, from here, hands on hips are 2 options really. So you can either do one more round, hands on hips or blocks, okay? So hands on blocks, you would step forward just as you did before. But this time, back foot pointed as you step forward, all right? And you can always try that a couple of times. And then, if you're looking for more, hands are on hips. Again, knees and ankles together if you can. Push into the top of the left foot, step the right foot forward. See if you can do it with your balance. And it's up to you. You can always revert to hands on blocks anytime you like. But that action of stepping forward and back will create more equality in terms of strength for the psoas. Generally, you'll find one side stepping forward without the blocks is much, much harder than the other. That's very normal. Take the hip bones forward. Think right femur back, left femur forward, hands on hips or thigh or blocks, whatever you fancy for this one. Think about taking the right hip continuously back, the left hip continuously forward, trying to lift the abdomen away from your thigh. Now you can either hang out here, which honestly is the most traditional and effective as long as you hold it sufficiently and frequently. Or if you're looking for a little more in the shoulders and armpits, I wouldn't say that this is a bad idea. It's a really nice one. Elbows pull apart, lift the elbows, and take them overhead. And then think about reaching the elbows apart, lifting and lengthening. Let's see if we can take 10 more breaths. And you can hang out here, you can hang out here, whatever you fancy. All are really nice options. Let yourself sink into the hips a little more if it's available and feels good. Just keep pulling the femurs into the hip sockets to keep the SI joint safe. Keep the lower back happy. And you're pushing into the top of that left foot so that you're not feeling pain in your knee at all. When it's enough, releasing the hands to the hips, to the thigh. If you're gonna go back with the blocks, then hands to blocks. Otherwise, hands on hips. Bring the hips a little bit back, and then step the right foot back. Push into the feet evenly, step the left foot forward. Remember, you have the option of your blocks anytime, right? Hands are on the hips, you're drawing the left hip bone more back, right hip bone more forward. Pushing into the feet, lengthening the spine, shoulders equal distance from the front of the mat, lifting the abdomen away from your left knee. Concentrate on one spot or close your eyes. But keep in mind, closing the eyes here is pretty darn tricky. Honestly, just bringing the gaze up to the ceiling is a really great place to start if you were looking to close the eyes eventually. As I've said, it's okay to let your knee travel slightly to the left, but not very much. Ever so slight. If you did on the other side, opposite clasp, so it'd be left arm on top, you pull those elbows apart. You could even do a few elbow push-ups if you like, and then you go overhead. Lengthening the spine, but no tension in shoulders, a little bit of both. Let's see if we can take 8 more breaths. releasing the hands to the hips, to the thigh, to the blocks, or if you're stepping back with no blocks, hips go a bit back, draw the abdomen in, and then slowly place your foot. Good. Now from here, it's come to sit. Extend the legs, relax the spine. Pardon me, and you can bend your knees more here if you fancied. Good. Now from here, you're gonna do a forward fold, blocks handy. So we're gonna bend one knee, bend the other knee, take the soles, pardon me, soles of the feet together. You want about a box diamond shape with the knees, a little closer to a diamond would be ideal. If you were to feel your knees at all, adjust the feet closer or further based on what feels best. You can always support the hips with blocks or with bolsters or whatever you have handy if needed. Now here we're looking to support the forehead if we can. So you might stack a couple of blocks on top of one another and then rest your forehead with the elbows resting. So this is a nice version. And you can even rest the fingertips here, the elbows here. If you had a bolster handy, you could, I'll show you what that would look like. If you happen to have a bolster, you could place it on the feet and rest the head with the arms resting. Some people like to place it between their feet. I personally am more a fan of having the feet together and the bolster on top though. And if it happens to be part of your practice to come further forward and one block is available or no blocks, go for it. Either way, let's take 10 more breaths. Feel the back of your body expanding and contracting, pushing the feet together as you relax the inner groins. Good, and then coming up nice and slow, take your hands to your knees, draw those knees together, and then we'll come down into Shavasana. So make sure you've got lots of space behind you, make a C with your spine, come down slowly, extending the legs, relaxing the toes, relaxing the arms. Becoming as still as you can be, resisting the urge to fidget and adjust, concentrating on your breathing, your body from the inside. Concentrating on being still. Slowly begin to deepen your breathing, moving the fingers and the toes, taking a stretch with the arms overhead, And bending the knees and walking the feet toward you. Rolling to your right, pushing yourself up, and coming into a comfortable seated position. Let's take a deep breath and finish with an Om. Big breath in. Om. Thank you so much for sharing your yoga. Namaste.